in 2019, the first time capsule buried by Stumpy Sanderson and his gang of mischievous working-class boys, and which was actually an old Watney's Party 7 can, was unearthed. Then in 2023, the second time capsule, which was an old Courage Jackpot Bitter Party can, was discovered. And now, Whistling 5 Anarchic Productions, in conjunction with the 1970s Cigarette Appreciation Club and Puffer Patterson's Benevolent Fund for Aging Thespians, proudly presents Series 2 of Stumpy Sanderson's 1970s stories, and the 22 stories found in that second time capsule. As narrated by Andrew Brammer. Bonjour, bon après-midi, et bonsoir. The story you are about to hear is narrated in the first person, because I, just like Stumpy, witnessed firsthand the momentous events which it describes. So, let's park up the rally chopper, dim the lava lamp, switch off that episode of Catweasel, finish up the plate of Vesta beef curry, crack open a can of Double Diamond, light up a mannequin cigar, and kick back, sit back, and listen in to the anarchic and outrageous japes, scrapes and capers of Stumpy Sanderson and his gang. For this story, we head back to 1978 for Cunningham's tomb. It was after school on the last Friday before half-term, and Stumpy and I had just finished a very quick band meeting with Bendy Henderson and Gusty Burton, the other members of our band, the Snarling Ferrets, as we wouldn't be rehearsing as normal that night due to Gusty and his family going away for the week to visit relatives. This also meant that during the next 7 days we wouldn't be able to use the school boiler room, our gang's meeting room, which we had special access to, with Gusty's dad being the school caretaker and Gusty having illicit access to the keys. So, now with time on our hands, Stumpy and I had decided to attend the extraordinary general meeting called by Stephen Brookman and Big Mo Greenwich, those left-wing masterminds and respective leaders of the Student Cooperative Alliance and the Student Revolutionary Party, a meeting that was to be held behind the bike sheds for fellow subversives and radicals. We thought we should attend, as word had gone round that Brookman and Big Mo had some particularly vital messages to relay. Making our way to the gathering, with hardly any teachers left on site, and with the very few pupils still around being either those who had finished short detentions or those in some of the after-school clubs, we suddenly saw Lanky Shinton and Chipolata Mick loitering with shifty intent outside the science block. Lanky Shinton and Chipolata Mick, two of the tallest boys in our year, and with the spikiest hairstyles around, were not only radical punk rockers, but were both also prodigiously gifted artisans and craftsmen in woodwork and metalwork. Indeed, their skills in these disciplines had led them to form and operate their own seditious and subversive organisation known as the Constructors of Anarchy. Spotting us, they beckoned us over. "Hi, lads. Fancy helping out with a wheeze?" said Lanky. "We need a couple of lookouts to help us out with this." And he pointed to a very strange object leaning behind them against the wall. It looked like a very large, door-sized and shaped piece of wood, cushioned on one side with 6 inches of thick, grey material padding, and with large drilled holes all around its outside. Next to this object had been laid a large screwdriver and a clear bag of very large wood screws. Now, of course, a request like this, together with the sight of some strange contraption, attracted us like moths to a flame, and Stumpy and I both jumped at the chance. "No problems. What's the plan?" And then, pointing to the strange door-like object, we asked, "And what is it?" "This, gentlemen, is the main plank of what will be a sealed tomb." And they proceeded to tell us their astonishing plan. For Lanky and Chipolata's fiendish purpose was that, using this expertly measured large piece of wood, thickly lagged and soundproofed with the grey padded material, and with its pre-drilled holes ready to accommodate the large wood screws, they would be sealing Mr. Cunningham, that strict disciplinarian of a science teacher, inside the main science block store cupboard. Their plan had been prepared using intelligence gathered from observations from snouts, who had established that Cunningham always stayed behind after school on a Friday, putting various pieces of equipment back into the store cupboard and conducting stock takes. So, when Cunningham was deep inside the cupboard conducting these checks, Lanky and Chipolata, having had him watched from a hidden and safe distance, would then quickly move into position, carrying between them their large contraption, quickly and quietly close the storeroom door, lock it with the spare keys they had somehow managed to purloin some weeks earlier, and whose mysterious disappearance had baffled numerous science teachers, position the large padded and handleless and accurately dimensioned door they had constructed over the smaller storeroom cupboard door, and then fix and secure it in place with the large wood screws, screwing the padded door's soundproofed form into the surrounding door frame. Thus, in no time, they would have secured the store cupboard, leaving Cunningham trapped inside, hermetically sealed within his own tomb. No one would hear him scream or shout. The plan was to then leave him there for a good hour or so, to reflect on his despotism, as Chipolata put it, until the cleaners came. And then Lanky and Chipolata, after attending the special meeting called by Brookman and Big Mo, would then head back to the science block and tip the cleaners off as to some strange noises they had thought they had heard coming from the store cupboard. They would be leaving the screwdriver by the door to enable the cleaners to then free the entombed Cunningham from a lesson he would never forget. The only factor they had missed from their plan had been the snag of the absence of lookouts caused by the planned two being unexpectedly unable to participate due to being given last-minute detentions. That is why Stumpy and I were now both coming into play. The plan went like clockwork. Stumpy and I headed into the block, keeping watch by peering round the main corridor. Then when we saw Cunningham emerge and make his way from one of the classrooms in the direction of the store cupboard, his arms laden with science lab equipment, we signalled with thumbs up to Lanky and Chipolata. As soon as we had given this all clear, Lanky and Chipolata entered the building, their tall and stealthy figures carrying their padded door, wood screws, and screwdriver with determined purpose. Craftsmen on a mission. Like Cunningham had just done minutes earlier, they too now reached the end of the corridor we had been keeping watch over, turned into another corridor, and disappeared from our sight. Ghoulish embalmers making their way to an entombment. Stumpy and I did not actually witness the sealing of the tomb, but after about 10 minutes, Lanky and Chipolata came running back down our corridor, now empty-handed and with great grins on their faces, and together we all made haste to Brookman and Big Mo's meeting, laughing out loud at Lanky and Chipolata's recounting of events, and at the thought of the shock, bewilderment, anger, agonies of mind, and ultimately desperation that Cunningham would be experiencing. Arriving at the meeting, we saw immediately there were a fair few in attendance, members of all types of organisations, not only from Brookman's and Big Mo's, but also members from the Red Peter Brigade, the Romantic Poets Student Socialist Union, the Sociology Radicals, and of course, now that Lanky and Chipolata were here, the constructors of anarchy. Everyone was now waiting on Stephen Brookman, with his swept-back Chairman Mao hair, round-rimmed Leon Trotsky glasses, Starling greatcoat, and Fidel Castro Havana cigar, and on Big Mo Greenwich, a very tall boy with the knowing, deep-set eyes of a radical, and whose afro curls were styled in an immaculate line-up cut. Big Mo had only joined our school this year, but he and Brookman had immediately found common ground, exchanging writings and ideas from such revolutionary figures as CLR James and Joanne Lai, as well as from the usual and more familiar Marxist sources. And now, ready to start, Brookman stood on his soapbox, still flush from his recent startling success in the organising of a Bedfordshire-wide paperboy strike, which had left thousands of households in the county without their morning newspapers for 2 weeks. And using the beautifully eloquent language of the left-wing firebrand, he began his address. "Welcome, comrades! Big Mo and I have called this extraordinary general meeting for one main reason: to announce the formation with immediate effect of a new organisation. An organisation so powerful that its collective might will be enough to shake the very autocratic foundations of this school to its very core." We were all transfixed, Brookman's oratory holding us rapt. He continued, "This organisation has been founded this morning through the merger of the Student Cooperative Alliance and the Student Revolutionary Party into what Big Mo and I have decided to call the Council of Communist Organisations." "That's Coco," hissed Stumpy. Brookman continued, "And this afternoon we are asking you all to join us, for there are far too many splinter groups operating independently, with no overall coordination or central planning. But just think, comrades, what we could achieve if we all pooled our resources. The Red Peter Brigade, the Romantic Poets Student Socialist Union, the Sociology Radicals, and the Constructors of Anarchy. Think of our might, think of our strength, think of our historical duty. Together we are united. Together we are one. Together we are unstoppable. Power to the pupils." A great roar went up. This was electrifying. But Brookman hadn't finished yet. Like a Dunstablian Lenin, he continued, the crowd in the palm of his hand. "And to demonstrate the collective power we can all have, just to give you an indication, Big Mo and I earlier today managed to convince the school cleaners, adults, yes, adults, to follow the example of the paper boys and to strike immediately for better pay and conditions. I am therefore delighted to announce that this afternoon these cleaners all walked out, and until their demands are met, there will be no cleaning undertaken by them at this school." Another great cheer went up, but Stumpy and I looked across at Lanky and Chipolata, their faces at first somewhat pensive, but quickly changing to looking distinctly concerned, as the realisation of what Brookman had just announced about the cleaners meant. As Brookman, now waving his fist in the air, was finishing his oration with a flourish of "Rise! Rise! Rise!" and the throng burst into the singing of the red flag, Lanky shouted, "Come on, we've got to get back to science block. If there are no cleaners, we'll need to somehow get Cunningham out of that store cupboard ourselves." Frantically, Lanky, Chipolata, Stumpy and I ran from the meeting, legging it back as fast as we could, the school completely deserted now, not a soul around, like a scene from the Omega Man. At last we reached science block, up to its main doors, but to our shock we found them locked. Desperately, Lanky and Chipolata tried them, pulling violently on them. "It's no good, they won't budge." And then, with a sudden and awful realisation, Stumpy shouted, "Gazooks! Gusty's dad must have locked up early." And I shouted, "And Gusty's family are going away for the weekend." With this bombshell realisation, we all looked at each other shell-shocked, and then again all set off as one, tearing through the quadrangles, racing like maniacs, as Chipolata shouted, "Quick, we might just catch 'em." Desperately we ran, past the main admin block, out onto the school entrance, seeing the completely empty staff car park opposite, but then spotting the white Vauxhall Victor estate car of the Burton family, heading up the long school driveway. Out of breath and panting, we looked on in horror as we saw the car stopping at the main gates, then turning right and out towards the A5, and the horrible realisation started to dawn on the four of us. With half-term week now upon us, and there being no caretaker or cleaners to call upon, that unless we were somehow able to come up with a solution as to how to solve the hieroglyphic puzzle of freeing Mr. Cunningham, The Science Block main store cupboard would soon be attaining the same historical importance and significance as the tomb of Tutankhamun. Thank you for listening to this episode of Stumpy Sanderson's 1970s Stories. And please don't forget to check out the other stories from Series 2 and Series 1. You can also follow Stumpy Sanderson's 1970s Stories on Facebook, where you can keep up to date with all the news about live shows and other Stumpy events. There's also the website, www.stumpysanderson.co.uk, and the Stumpy Sanderson's 1970s Stories YouTube channel. And you can get in touch with me at andrew@stumpysanderson.co.uk. Until the next story, au revoir et bonne nuit, and keep grooving.
Yeah. This podcast has been recorded using a DIY punk rock philosophy. Yeah.